In this video, we're going to talk about how to letter numbers. Okay, the title of this is wrong. It should say lettering group 3. And it says it down here. The numbers will be a little bit easier for you because you've already done straight line, you've already done curved, and numbers kind of combine all of those concepts. So numbers you'll find a little bit easier. You'll have been practicing some of the other letters, and so it'll come just a little bit more naturally to you. You'll notice that there is no number 1. Number 1 is the same as the letter I, so we're not going to take time to do it. It's just a straight line. Down here, you look at it, and it's got that little extra stroke to it. I want you to just do a straight line for the number 1. So we're going to start with the number 4. Before we do that, none of these are 6 units wide. They're all 5 units wide, so all of your numbers are going to be 5 by 6, 5 units wide, 6 units tall. And remember that you are using a regular pencil. I'm using a colored pencil to help you be able to see a little bit better. So just make sure that you are using a regular pencil while you're doing this. Remember that your job is to get all of these 3 boxes filled out next to each number and then fill out down here. And you will have time in class to finish some of this. Main thing I want you to do is get the strokes down and practice the first one at home. So we're going to start with the letter 4. The letter 4 has 3 strokes. The first stroke is my vertical stroke. The second stroke is my angled stroke, and I'm going to draw down and to the left. And then my third stroke is my horizontal stroke. The letter 4, like I said, is 5 units wide, and the horizontal stroke goes out to 5 units. My vertical stroke is at 4 units, so I'm going to draw straight down. Okay, and then if you want, you can put a little dot at where the horizontal stroke is. The horizontal stroke is actually in between 2, and that's where my angled is going to end. So it's going to be between 4 and 5. So I'm going to put that point, and I'm going to draw to that point. And then my last stroke is my horizontal that goes halfway between the 2 and ends at the 5th unit. All right, the number 7 has 2 strokes to it. My first stroke is my horizontal stroke at the top, and then my second stroke is the whole bottom part of my 7. And you'll notice that bottom part goes straight and then it curves. Okay, so for the 7, my first stroke is my horizontal at the top, and it goes all the way across to unit 5. And then if you need to, kind of make a mark where you know that the 7 kind of starts to curve, so it starts to curve right about here, and then it ends here. Okay, so there's not really much of a curve to it, but I'm going to draw straight, and then I'm going to curve so that it ends at 2 units over. The letter 2 has 2 strokes to it, and it's a little bit different than the other ones. I'm not starting with my straight line. I'm actually going to start with my curve and then do my horizontal line. So with the 2, if you need to, just like we have been, if you need to kind of mark where it touches certain parts of the box, and it is 5 units, but the bottom part is 5 units wide, so this part's going to be shallow of 5 units. If you need to kind of mark where the middle is, and then where it touches down here, if that helps you to create that first stroke, and then your horizontal stroke goes all the way out to 5 units. So the key with the number 2 is that this part is a little bit shallow of this part. Alright, so the number 8. The number 8 has 4 strokes. I'm going to do each ellipse in 2 strokes, and you'll see that these are actually ellipses, they're not circles. It is 5 units wide. The bottom half is wider than the top half. Okay, so I'm going to kind of mark where my middle is. It's going to be 2.5. I'm going to mark at the top and the bottom, and then also where the middle meets here. It doesn't meet actually at a line because the top is actually tall, and the bottom is taller than the top. So it's going to be a little short. Okay. So my first stroke is to the left at the top, top and to the left, all the way to the middle. It's kind of hard to see that. And then to the right, to the middle, and then the bottom left all the way to the middle, and the bottom right to the middle. Okay, so eight's a little bit tricky because you've got these 4 strokes and they need to meet up. So I'm going to do, also pay attention to where the top meets, where the top ends, so it's not quite all the way out to 5 units or even to the end. So I'm going to make my first stroke, and then my second stroke. My third stroke goes all the way out to 5 units and all the way out to the end, so my third stroke and my fourth stroke. Okay? And remember, they're going to be sloppy, a little bit sloppy when you draw them big, and then as you get smaller, they'll get easier. So the number 3 has 2 different options. I want you to practice both, but then I want you to pick which one that you prefer and just draw that one all the time. So the first one is like the number 8. It's the same shape, it's just missing parts of it. But the stroke order is different. So for my first one, my first stroke is to the right and it's the whole top. My second stroke is to the right and it's most of the bottom, and then my third stroke finishes the bottom. So if you need to, same thing, mark wherever you know it crosses so that you know kind of where you're going. And then draw in your stroke. So my first stroke is to the right. My second stroke goes to the right also, but it goes wider. And then my third stroke finishes the 3. So with the 3, the key is that the bottom is wider than the top and also taller than the top. For the second 3, there is 3 strokes. Your first one is the whole top. Okay? That's your first stroke. And you'll see that there's a little curve right there. And then the second one is just like the second one and the first one. And then the third one finishes that. So you can do the same thing. Here it starts a little shallow, and shallow of 1, and then it ends shallow of 5. It meets kind of in the same place. It meets in the same place as the first one, and then your bottom half is the same. It goes out to 5, touches the bottom, and then your third stroke touches down here. So your first stroke is your horizontal stroke with the curve. And then your second stroke is the bottom half, and then your third stroke finishes the bottom part of the 3. So with the 3, pick which one you like the best and stick with that one and always do that one. The number 5 has 4 strokes to it. The first stroke is my vertical. The second stroke is the hump of the 5. It goes all the way around to the bottom kind of corner. The third stroke is the bottom part of this. That kind of ends the hump. And then the fourth stroke is the horizontal. Okay? So if I look at my first stroke, I notice it goes down, not quite to 3, but almost to 3, and it is halfway between 1 and 2. So I'm going to draw that in. Okay, my second stroke is the hump. It goes out all the way to 5. And it actually goes a little bit high of my first stroke. Okay, so I'm going to draw it. And then my third stroke finishes the hump of the 5. And then my fourth stroke is shallow of 5. It's not quite halfway between 4 and 5. So I'm going to draw it in. And there's my 5. Okay, so the next 3 numbers, 0, 6, and 9, are all based off of the basic elliptical shape of the 0. Okay, and the 6 and 9 are kind of flipped from each other. So I'm going to start with my 0. It has 2 strokes, just like the O, but instead of being perfectly circular, it's an ellipse. So my first stroke, top excuse me, top middle to the bottom corner, and then my second stroke finishes it. So same thing, you know it's only going to go out to 5, so I can kind of mark where it's going to go to help guide it. So I have my first stroke, and then I have my second stroke. Okay, the zero's a little bit more difficult. Just keep practicing it and you'll get better. The 6 has 3 strokes to it. The first stroke is the same as my 0. Come around to my bottom corner. The second stroke creates the middle of the 6. And the third stroke creates the top of the 6. So I'm going to, same thing, I'm going to kind of mark where I know it touches. Create my first stroke. And then I'm also going to kind of mark where my second stroke is. It actually goes kind of high. Put in my second stroke. And then my third stroke, which just finishes it up. Okay? And then the number 9, 3 strokes as well, but it's flipped, so the strokes kind of go in a little bit different direction. So here's my first stroke. It's actually the middle part of my 9. The second stroke makes the outside of the 9, and the third stroke finishes the 9. So just like with the 6, I'm going to kind of mark where I know that it will touch to help me create those circular or elliptical shapes. Once you kind of get it down, I don't expect you to mark everything. And actually, it's going to be really hard when you get down here to mark things. But this will help you kind of practice. So my first stroke is the inside of my 9. My second stroke makes the outside of my 9, and then the third stroke finishes the 9. Okay? And the last thing on here is the ampersand sign. And the ampersand sign is kind of like the S. It's going to be a little bit more difficult because it's big strokes in one thing. The first stroke starts in the middle, top middle, and goes around and down and makes the straight part. Your second stroke goes to the right and then makes the main curve of the ampersand, and then your third finishes it. So just like with the other ones, I'm going to kind of mark where I'm going to start, where I know it's going to cross, and then I know I'm going to go straight down to here. So I'm going to start that, curve down and around and straight. And then my second one, I know it's going to cross kind of here, and it's going to touch over here and at the bottom here. So now I'm going to go down and around, and then I'm going to finish with my third stroke. Okay, so make sure you practice each one of these, kind of take notes as you need to. All the strokes are in your book also. Down here, same thing as before, you're going to write in the guidelines, repeat each one twice. Here where it says plus 0.003 and minus 0.005, put plus 0.003 here, minus 0.005 here, and then down here, you're not going to write each one of these twice, you're just going to write this whole thing once. So it's going to say Langham Creek High School with the address, the city and state, and then over here, date, scale, drawing. So you're only going to do each one of these once. So wherever there's a line, you fill it in. If there's a second line and there's not a second line of text, fill the same thing in again. Remember, if you have any questions, feel feel free to ask them in class. And make sure you ask so that I can help you with anything that you're stuck with.